Hello and welcome. This is Following On. You're watching us on YouTube or you're listening to the podcast. I'm Jon Norman, and alongside me, Neil Manthorp, who has made his way back from India. Yes, we are broadcasting from the UK. That's just how it is. Manners, question for you. Are you ready to laugh about your 18-hour stay in Delhi yet?
Yeah, it was a challenge. But
Did you do any sightseeing?
No, I didn't. Actually, it stayed in my hotel room, extended
Sulking.
the booking by 12 hours, and had a couple of extra sleeps. So I was great. Scott Taylor, our producer, and the rest of the team were wondering about. They were given directions to a shopping mall, which turned out to be 3 shops and a restaurant, and so they wandered about for a while I had a good kip.
If viewers are unsure of why I'm talking about that, it's because the team decided that they didn't want a 7-hour stopover in Delhi ahead of flying back to the
We
UK.
wanted an 18-hour one.
And that's what they got. Have you stayed on India time, or are you in UK time or South Africa time, or that kind of just jet lag time?
It's very strange because obviously with the daylight hours and I think I've been trying to stay on India time, but and what I wasn't expecting was the cold weather. I forgot that February in London is quite different to Visakhapatnam. So I've been off to buy myself a new sweater and a puffer jacket, and I'll be all good.
And now you're sweating up a treat.
Heating's good in this building.
Manners, I couldn't help but notice via your wonderful Substack column, but also by talking to you and listening to you, and you captured it perfectly, but how excited were you going to the ground on day 4 when England was set 399? For some reason, we just all thought they were going to do it.
I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, I went on and on about the fact that that in all my previous experience in India and in fact anywhere else in the world, you just the conversation was always going to be about how painful the death would be, how quick or slow it might be. But there was a real belief, and what was really interesting is hearing Shubman Gill. Do you remember at the end of the 3rd day when Shubman Gill said, "We're about 70-30 odds in our favour," and everybody was thinking, "No, Shubman, that's not 70-30. England need 399. But that's the way that the game has been changed by this new era of English cricket. And I am so thrilled and excited about Rajkot. One of my favourite England Test matches in the last 2 years, I think, was at Rawalpindi on a desperately slow pitch when England forced the pace, scored at 6 and over, pushed the game on when any other team in the world, and I really mean that, would have said, "Oh, this is a draw." They probably would have, packed the cards up metaphorically after 3 days and said, "This is a draw. Nobody can get a result on this." And if Rajkot turns out to be like that, and it does have a reputation of being one of the flattest pitches in India, then the idea of Stokes and his team forcing the pace and making something happen just thrills me. I can't wait. I don't even mind the 4 a.m. starts.
4 a.m. You haven't lying.
Yeah, 3 a.m.
Got news for you, mate. We're on air at 3:30 on day 1. That Rawalpindi victory, I was chatting to Mark Butcher when he made his way. He was commentating for TV there. Rob Key was out there, of course. He was part of... I don't know, he was commentating too. It was before he got the gig. I think that was possibly the greatest of all the great victories that England have managed, because Stokes' captaincy and the England team had to be perfect for 5 days.
Yeah.
To carve out a result. They did that.
Measured in terms of unlikeliness, and then I would agree with you. But I just found the whole thing completely compelling and thrilling. And there's maybe half a dozen Test matches that I haven't been at that have completely disrupted my life, and I've missed meetings and left kids at school and that kind of thing. And the Rawalpindi Test match was one of them. I mean, go back to 2005 Ashes. There was a month and a half of having to reschedule things, because all of your instincts said, even watching it from afar, watching it on TV, you thought, you can't get a result on this. I mean, it's just like there was nothing happening, was there? The spin was so slow. Batsmen were playing spinners off the pitch. There was nothing in it for the seamers. And yet Stokes pushed and pushed and pushed and then pushed again and got everyone else to push and score at the rate they did. It was just thrilling.
Oh, it was incredible. I was listening to Alan Brazil on the Breakfast Show this morning, and he raised a point which I actually wasn't aware of. We just had a quick check of the odds, and I know, shock horror, Alan Brazil looking at the odds ahead of a game. But he was like, England actually are favourites in some markets to win the third Test match, which, again, we followed this game for years, but to be in this position now, where after day 2, I'm pretty sure I wasn't alone in having that sinking feeling, because it's all well and good trumpeting 5 Test series, right? But after day 2, and you're thinking, oof, the gulf between our spinners and their batters looks so vast, and yet find ourselves now, albeit off the back of an England defeat, that England are favourites in some quarters to go on and win the series is some turnaround.
A lot is based, obviously, on the Indian personnel issues and the fact that Virat Kohli's not there, Mohammad Shami's not there. We've just heard that Ravi Jadeja is fit to play. But there's some really big names. Shreyas Iyer has been dropped, and it was really quite interesting and revealing that the BCCI never made any comment, and it was assumed that he was injured. In fact, turns out he's been dropped, and he's like the next big star. So really fascinating, actually. And again, you look at the numbers. England's spinners, with Jack Leach and without Jack Leach, have actually out-bowled India's spinners, which is totally and utterly bonkers. Who would be a bookmaker these days? Because these guys they're coming up with the odds. They're looking at the numbers. They're doing a statistical analysis, and then they're coming up with odds which probably defy all of their cricketing instincts.
Yeah.
If bookmakers have cricketing instincts, and just mathematicians.
Yeah, that's maths or instincts. It's the same thing. I love it. It's incredible that we're at this stage of our careers and we're still marvelling at at cricket. Anyway, we are here in the UK. But talkSPORT does have a presence in India. So let's have a little listen or watch. Cameron Ponsonby, talkSPORT's man in the camp with the Daily Telegraph cricket writer and fine fellow, Will Macpherson.
Welcome to the SCA Cricket Stadium Rajkot, the soon-to-be renamed SCA Cricket Stadium Rajkot. Those on YouTube might just be able to see over me and Will's shoulders the kind of outlines of a ceremony being put together. They're renaming it to the Niranjan Shah Cricket Stadium as of today, so some breaking news for you. Most importantly though, I have Will Macpherson from the Telegraph here with me, and he's going to tell us all about the news that we've just been told from Ben Stokes, which is that it's Mark Wood in, Shoaib Bashir out for the third test.
Yeah, just for one change for England. The question, I suppose, was around Rayan Ahmed, who's had a bit of a visa issue over the last few days, but that's all been sorted this morning. He's been cleared to play, and from there, I think the wind has been blowing towards Wood for Bashir as the one change, and that's what they've gone for.
We were trying to work out whether the team had been decided as of yesterday. Stokes said they'd picked a 12. But all hints kind of looked towards the fact it was going to go towards Mark Wood. Just before we did the press conferences, we'd been told no team had been decided yet. We saw McCullum and Stokes having a proper long look at the wicket, and lo and behold, 2 minutes later, they had a test. They had a team, and they decided what the 11 was going to be. I'm not sure if we completely bought that was the final kind of parts of the jigsaw coming together, but it was very entertaining nonetheless. I think with England, the main news of the last week has probably been Jack Leach being ruled out for the remainder of the series. How big a blow is that to England? Or is it the case that actually they've got 3 spinners out here that they rate very highly, and it could be that a change in the pecking order might be happening in front of our eyes?
It reduces their options, definitely. When we left Vizag, I wasn't expecting Jack Leach to be fit for this game, but I thought he might be fit for Ranchi. He's obviously, the injury did not improve. It was a pretty gruesome looking knee he had, and it didn't improve despite having treatment every day in Abu Dhabi, so they've eventually decided just to put a fork in it and send him home. I still think actually that Leach, the England management hold Leach in the highest regard, and think he is their first choice spinner. I would expect, as things stand, that when we get to the first test of the summer, which isn't until July, that will still be the case. But Tom Hartley, Rayan Ahmed and even Shoaib Bashir have an opportunity for the remainder of his tour to change that. Hartley particularly, I think, has been impressive. He obviously took 9 for on his debut, but he's batted really well, which is something, Leach has made some famous runs in the past, a famous run. But Hartley's clearly a superior batter to him. So I don't think there'll be a change of pecking order after this tour, but you never know. And it does reduce England's options. McCullum joked about, I don't know. He said that at one stage they might play 4 spinners. That is now off the table unless Dan Lawrence comes into the team as a spinner. I wouldn't be surprised if England do pick an extra seamer for the remainder of the series, actually. Dharamshala is cold. So that they'll pick, I think, at least 2 seamers there. Ranchi, who knows, and they've got 2 seamers here.
Just on Jack Leach's injury, I was talking to the finest medical brain in all of cricket, Steve Harmison, during Hyderabad, and he was telling me that he'd had a hematoma during his career, and it was just a case of get some physio into you and you'll be okay the following week. Has the severity of the injury taken England by surprise? Was the thought process that A, he'll be fit for Vizag, and if not Vizag, with 1 more week he'll definitely be fit for Rajkot?
I think it has a little bit. I mean, Leach is he is famously unfortunate and injury prone, and he's obviously got his Crohn's disease. He takes medication around that, all those kind of things. I think generally his recovery from things is a little bit slower than most players. I think he got through that test in Hyderabad on adrenaline, essentially, and he actually bowled very nicely there. Given the circumstances, he went a couple and over, took 2 wickets in the match even after the injury happened. But I think it has taken them by surprise. I don't think when they left for Abu Dhabi they were expecting that 5 or 6 days later they'd be ruling him out of the tour. It's very sad, really. Leach has had a tough year, to be honest. But yeah, and he would have come on this tour. They came on this tour thinking that he was going to be one of their main men, and in the end he's going to have taken 2 wickets on the whole tour.
To focus on the players who are here and now, the most recent news story is that Rayan Ahmed is successfully in the country. There's been 2 visa problems for England this tour. They have been different though. This was a clerical error from England. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think England need to take this one on the chin, essentially, to have a player on a single entry visa and to take him out of the country without knowing that. That seems very naive at best. And yeah, a clerical error. Ben Stokes has spoken to us. He's not looking to apportion blame, and it is sorted now, so that's all good. But for Ahmed to get to the airport in Rajkot on Monday evening and learn that he wasn't actually allowed in the country is not great. I think the Bashir one, there's a sense that was to do with his Pakistani heritage, and England, the only error you could accuse him of on that one is not applying for a visa before he was in the squad. Nice. If they thought he might, but that's stretching a bit. This one, Ahmed's had this visa for 6 months. They got it for him for the World Cup when he was a reserve player. He never used it then. So yeah, I think on England's part this is a bit of a cock up, and they need to take it on the chin, but it is sorted, and that is a relief. They've obviously had some cooperation from local authorities, because he could easily have been leaving the country.
You are the most well-informed man in the entirety of English cricket. What is your sense of the kind of mood in the English camp currently? Is everyone's spirits high after Abu Dhabi, or 100 test matches for Ben Stokes? It's kind of the great contradiction of this test match is Stokes hates the kind of individual kind of attention, but we're all here celebrating him for this amazing milestone. Ollie Pope told us that for Joe Root's 100th test, they all watched kind of montages of Root scoring hundreds and hundreds of runs. I would love to see kind of how uncomfortable Stokes would be in that similar position, maybe happening later today. But in general, how is the vibe, and what's the news from the camp been? Yeah,
when we left Vizag, I can't remember an England defeat like it, really. In that, it was still 1-1, and that was. They would have bitten your hand off for 1-1 after 2 tests, let's be honest. But B, they did so much right in Vizag. They had a pretty good go at chasing 399. The game in the 3rd innings never quite got away from them. Generally, they just played quite well, and they are competing with India. So, I've seen England lose some games away from home on tours before, and I can't remember one like that. I think the mood is positive. They've had this break. I think I wouldn't underestimate the value of a bit of time with families, a bit of time out of... India for a cricketer is a bit like being in a goldfish bowl. You are, people even ask us for selfies. I mean, for them it's crazy. And I think when I first learnt that they were going to go to Abu Dhabi in the break, I thought, I'm not sure about that. You should probably stay in India. Now they've done it, and when they went, I was actually, by the time they went, I was very comfortable with it. I think it'll be good for them. And now they've got a month of really tough cricket. They're in this series. They're competing against India. India still look undermanned. Still a weak-looking India team. They've got an amazing opportunity. And I think the mood is kind of positive. That some of these guys had good experiences in Rajkot 8 years ago. They didn't win, but Stokes got 100, Root got 100, Bairstow got some runs. They know it's quite a flat pitch. They love those kind of, like, think back to Rawalpindi, they love these games where you have to get their hands dirty. In previous eras, England would have accepted a draw in a game like this and then moved on to Ranchi. Not this team. They're going to do everything they can to force a win, and they kind of embrace, in a way that England teams of the past have moaned about pitches, about conditions. This lot don't do it. I don't think they think differently, and they see it as an opportunity.
And remarkably, we heard reports that there was actually very little golf in Abu Dhabi as well. But that's all to come later on. The test starts on Thursday. Set your alarms to be up bright and early for all the coverage on talkSPORT. If you're listening to this in the next 3 hours from when we're recording it, we're at the SCA Cricket Stadium. If you're listening from that point onwards, it's the Niranjan Shah Cricket Stadium. Make sure to get all your cricket action at talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel and the following on podcast and the radio and all the good places. See you then.
So Cameron will be conducting all the interviews for the next couple of test matches from India for talkSPORT. And it's always good to hear Will as well. You know, the pitch. Ben Stokes, we'll hear from him shortly. England have played at Rajkot. You've had a little look at quite an interesting game that took place in 2016. They weren't playing anywhere other than Ahmedabad and Chennai when talkSPORT had the rights to the series in 2021. I mean, I love this. This is one of my favourite things about cricket. You know, I watched the first session of the second test match in Hamilton, where we were at the start of last year for a warm-up game, and the commentary team were gobsmacked by South Africa's decision to go in with two spinners, whereas New Zealand had dropped Mitchell Santner and bat first when New Zealand were always going to bowl first. And here we are at the end of day 2, and New Zealand have been bowled out for 221 or 211. They've given up 40 runs on first innings. Dane Pete, you know, I thought he was going to be playing for the USA at the T20 World Cup later this year. He's taken a fifer on his return to the side. It's incredible, isn't it, that even after all these years, we talk about the game, you know, marvelling at the game, but we just don't know, do we? We're guessing, we're looking, we're summarising, we're suggesting, but essentially, until we start play, we actually don't know what's going to happen, and that, for me, is one of the wonderful things about Test cricket.
The unpredictability, and that's exactly why we love it, and the fact that it can turn and twist and change direction. And South Africa's D team includes.
It's not a D. I've heard you say this. Like, I've done the maths, Manners, and I think I heard you say that 56 players were not available for selection, right? So there's 11 players in the Test side. So that is A, B, C, D, E. Go on. This is a South Africa F side.
Well,
no disrespect. I'm just using the instinct stroke maths.
Okay, well, not all of those 56 players would have been Test cricketers. But it doesn't matter, C or D team. We'll go with D. Including a 37-year-old leg spinner in Sean van Berg, who, as you mentioned earlier, looks more like a rugby hooker than he's stoutly proportioned. And he's been taking wickets for years and years and years, and just doing his job, living quietly in Bloemfontein, playing for the Knights, and never, ever dreamed. In fact, he didn't get a contract 2 years ago when the first-class system was restructured in South Africa. Nobody wanted him. There was no place for him. He had to beg and bribe his way into one of the squads in the second division. And here he is, playing a Test match.
Love it. There is, of course, a big milestone coming up. Not that Ben Stokes cares about such things. 100th Test for Ben Stokes. There's can't be too many all-rounders that have managed that, by the way. He has been speaking to talkSPORT. Let's hear what he had to say.
Ben Stokes, we're a day out from the Test match. Have you decided on an 11?
Yeah, we've got one change from last week. Mark Wood comes in for Shoaib Bashir.
And why have you made that decision?
I think we had a good look at the wicket yesterday. We wanted to leave it till the day before, as we have done throughout the series. And yeah, we just feel like giving ourselves the best chance would be bringing another seamer in this week.
So what did you see on the pitch today that has made you come to that decision that it wasn't quite where yesterday?
I mean, I think taking a little bit of information from the last Test match we played here, albeit it was a very long time ago, but it was sort of probably the truest wicket. And yeah, we feel like we'll be able to, I don't know, like just exploit the conditions more with bringing Woody in and having 2 seamers rather than just having the one this week.
And take it this means Rehan Ahmed's visa issues all sorted?
Yeah, that's all done. I think obviously since getting here, as I said before, the gentleman at the airport did a great job in getting him his 72-hour visa, and then everyone behind the scenes who put the hard work in to get Rehan his visa for the rest of the trip. So yeah, that's not an issue we have to worry about anymore.
One of the mainstays of this group has been backing people all the way. How difficult a conversation was that with Shoaib that he was going to have to sit out for this one?
Well, look, Baz does all the good news and the bad news, and that's just sort of how we try and keep it, very fluid throughout. But Baz will be speaking to all the guys there, so I've just walked out. We decided what we went, and then I came over and spoke to you blokes. But look, I'm sure there's obviously reasons as to why we've done it, and Bash will take it on the chin. But I thought shouldn't take anything away from the performance he put in last week, and I'm sure we'll have more opportunities throughout the rest of the tour.
A huge backing of those 3 spinners has been the fact that with Jack Leach unfortunately out for the rest of the series, you've decided not to bring up anyone else from outside the squad. Was that a difficult decision? Was there conversations about potentially getting someone on the phone?
No, it wasn't. I mean, that's just, we didn't feel like we needed to. I think it would be an unnecessary sort of decision that we'd have to make. We fully back the other spinners that we've got out here, and hopefully we don't have to, go down the route of having to call anyone up, because obviously if we do, that means that someone's, probably got an injury. So touch wood, that doesn't happen.
On a personal level, 100 Test matches, it's an amazing achievement. How have you reflected on it personally?
Not too much. I think it's all about just everything coming up. It's obviously a huge achievement. Playing 100 Test matches. It's tough. It's over a long period of time, but hopefully there's plenty more to come. And
Ollie Pope told us yesterday that for Joe Root's 100th Test match, there was a bit of a montage going on. Do you know if there's any plans to watch the highlights of Ben Stokes the rest of today? I've got no idea. We'll have to wait and see. Do you personally have a favourite innings or favourite match of your own performance where you look back and go, that was the one that really felt special? I think one of my favourite games that I've been part of was probably Cape Town in 2019. Day 5 finish right at the very end, and I sort of judge my sort of performances on what influence they have in the game, and throughout that Test match, I had a pretty good game as an all-rounder, got some runs and took some wickets, and we ended up winning the game. So yeah, I think that one. And finally, the kind of narrative of this series was expecting 5 pitches that were really going to spin loads from day 1. That hasn't been the case at all, really. What are we expecting from this wicket for the next 4 or 5 days? I think you've always got to come here with the fact that the conditions are going to suit the spinners, but not having that set in your mind as that's what it's going to be. Obviously the first wicket we came up against, that spun from day 1, and then the second wicket was different. It sort of took longer for the spin to come into the game more, and this wicket again, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens and adjust to whatever conditions sort of present itself in front of us.
Ben Stokes speaking with Cameron Ponsonby, and as you'd imagine, kind of batting away the 100 Test milestone moment. But when you consider the impact he's had on this England cricket team, it's incredible. He's of course suffered, like we all have in life, some off-field dramas. I think there were quite a few who would have bet against him registering 100 Tests earlier on in his career, but I mean, he's given us some of the most wonderful moments over the last 12 to 18 months. The Ashes is just around the corner, by the way, so there is more to come. But as impact players go, I struggle to think of too many players that match him. Whether it's from captaincy, whether it's from fielding, whether it's from bowling, whether it's from batting, whether it's from just introducing an ethos to a team in a way that you've never seen before. He's just changed so many complexions of this cricket team over the last few years, and he might not want to celebrate the 100 moment, but it gives us a good opportunity to do so.
It does, and I think that he'll be remembered as one of the England greats. Steve Harmison and I were discussing this a couple of days ago, and it seems premature 2 years into his reign as Test captain to introduce him into the discussion about the greatest of all time. But I don't think it is premature. I think that him and Brendan McCullum have changed the game of Test cricket. I think they've done so on a global platform, and I think that we'll look back and many years go, long after we're gone, your future generations will look back at this era as the time that Test cricket changed. It's interesting, you said not many would have put him down for 100 Test matches. I was amongst those. I didn't think he'd play 100 Test matches, but I made the mistake, talk about a misjudgment, of thinking that would have been out of choice. I didn't realise just how passionate he was and would become about Test cricket, and that for me is the big difference. I know that central contracts and well, he's only got 1 year, didn't he? He turned down a 3-year central contract, but he could nonetheless have focused on making a great deal of money, and who could have begrudged him for that? Instead of which, I mean, he's well off, he's not struggling, but he's instead dedicated his cricket career to playing Test cricket, which I think is one of the reasons that he'll be remembered as one of the great players of all time. And it's funny how he's played these probably 4 or 5 career-defining innings, and we always think of his batting. But I'm glad that he points to Cape Town 2020 as one of his favourite Test matches, because his contributions with the ball have been extraordinary. I mean, the 135 not out at Headingley with the Jack Leach 1 not out was only possible because he bowled 12 overs of bouncers on the third day or the fourth day to completely change the whole structure of the game, which Australia were totally dominating. But it was great. In Cape Town, he made, again, his impact, as you say, was extraordinary. I mean, it was a very, very flat pitch. England were running out of time. Dom Sibley made 100 in the second innings from 311 balls, and Stokes came in and made 70, having made 40 at a run ball in the first innings, came in and made 70 or 40 balls in order to set up the declaration, and then took the last 3 wickets, or 3 of the last 4 wickets, to win the Test match. He was everywhere. He was catching the ball in, he was running people out, he was taking wickets, he was scoring runs in both innings. Glorious.
And called brilliantly towards the end by Guy Swindles as well on talkSPORT too. It was a and England were 1-0 down in that series, by the way, weren't they? So it wasn't like it was 3-1 up against a team, kind of giving up the ghost. It was very much series alive. Let's finish up though. We haven't really talked too much about India. Where are they? I mean, we've had 2 very sporting pitches, haven't we? For all of our talk prior to the series about these, Joe Root taking 5 wickets on day 1 kind of pitches. It hasn't played out like that. If we are expecting another good pitch, maybe a truer surface, maybe, right? How do you assess the strengths when you consider where India are, as opposed to England's going into this 3rd Test match?
All the pressure's on India. That I hate using the word pressure. Expectation. All of the weight of expectation is on India, more than we could ever possibly have imagined. And it's not just because of the scoreline. It's because of the pressure, and I do mean pressure on the personnel. And so, so much depends on Jadeja and Ashwin. Jadeja is now fit, as I said at the very beginning. But England just play with this glorious freedom. I mean, they've got, they've dropped, they haven't selected Shoaib Bashir, and that is a difference. But still, they're going in with 2 spinners with 5 caps between them, and Rian Ahmed and Tom Hartley. But Stokes just says, you know what, I don't care if you go for 10 and over. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can go for 100 and not take a wicket, because you could take 3 in your next over. It's just this carefree, as opposed to careless attitude, where just go out and enjoy it, make memories. It all sounded a bit cheesy when the whole concept of playing non-result orientated Test cricket was first introduced. We're going like, well, really? What's the point in playing if you're not playing to win? But I get it now, and I understand it now, and I think more and more people are understanding it. Yes, they do care about the result, but don't care about it. It's like focusing on the finishing line halfway through a marathon. Don't think about the result. Just enjoy what you're doing. and then care about the result when it comes along.
Brilliant. How much do you love Test cricket?
Yeah.
Out of 100?
101.
Good answer. Manners will be back. Commentary from talkSPORT 2 and talkSPORT, 3:30 in the morning on Thursday. Simulcast on talkSPORT, and of course via this wonderful YouTube channel, talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. But for now, that's it. Thanks for watching or listening to Following On.